Hi everybody, Kelly Jordon with Lucky Craft Baits. This is the Kelly J. It's a topwater prop bait. And we're here, the bass are spawning, fixing to be done spawning. The bluegill are coming in to start spawning, which happens right after the bass are pretty much done. That's when the topwater bite explodes. One of my favorite times of year to fish. And the Kelly J, this prop bait, is one of the best topwaters to throw right after the bass are at the end of the spawn or just done spawning and the brim are on the beds. It's a brim imitation. It looks just like a brim, sits in the water deep. The water line is pretty high on this bait. It's got a great profile that they don't see a lot, and it's very natural. And it's a quiet topwater because it's a prop bait. It'll make a little bit of noise, but it's a little more subtle than a popping bait. It's kind of like maybe in between a popping bait and a walking bait, like a Sammy. And it drives the big bass crazy. One of the best ways to catch a big bass in late spring is on a Kelly J topwaters. Up shallow, fishing targets, stumps, boat docks, edges of reeds, holes in the grass, isolated stumps, anywhere you think a big bass might be sitting, or if you find where the brim are spawning, a big brim bed, this is the ticket. It's an awesome topwater bait. Throw it on 15-pound monofilament line or 20, but not fluorocarbon because that'll sink and draw it down a little bit, but it's one of my favorites and it catches a lot of big fish. Hi everybody, Kelly Jordon here with Lucky Craft, and this is the Flash Minnow Wake. It's a floating jerkbait, it's not suspending. A lot different than our line of suspending jerkbaits, but it's got a real shallow bill on it. And it's deadly around the spawn or the shad spawn, which is spring to early summer. This bait really shines. Now what it does is it's a wake bait. Make long cast out there, reel it in real slow. It just kind of walks on top and makes a wake and comes along real slow. That's a really slow way to fish it, but it can draw those big ones in. The other way to fish it, that I like to fish it too, is with little jerks. It's almost like a cadence like you would when you're doing a walking bait. You give it a twitch, a twitch, a twitch. Not too fast, probably a second or two in between. And it makes this bait dive just about a foot, and it kind of hitches every time you jerk. And it just kind of comes along and makes a little jerk every now and then. And that drives bass wild, especially when they're on the beds or protecting fry or up there shallow. Especially in really shallow water, it won't go very deep. It'll only go 6 inches or a foot deep on those jerks. If you wake it, of course, it's up on the top the whole time. But it is a bait that they don't see a lot. It's a presentation that most people don't throw a presentation like that. It's almost like it's like a subsurface topwater, if that makes sense. It walks just like a Sammy does, but it does it just underwater, and then it floats back up. And then you can let it sit there and float natural on the top. And you'll see every strike you get, which is exciting as well. Maybe when the fish aren't ready to commit all the way to a topwater strike, this is the go-to bait. It's just on the surface. You can let it sit there. You can fish it very slowly around targets, and you can keep it around maybe if you find a big stump or a rock or a piling or clump of grass, something you figure there's a bass there, you can keep it close to that for a long time, not move it very much, and let it sit there and just give it a little twitch on the surface, or slow wake it along, or give it some rips and let it float back up and sit there for a minute. There's endless possibilities, ways to fish it, but it's a deadly bait when the bass are up shallow. Love it.